Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. Is there trouble in paradise? I try not to make a big deal out of certain things, and it's very early, and I think they were trying to get a point across. However, there's been a lot of discussion about Payne and Jonathan Allen, specifically after Week 2's performance versus the Giants. Second week in a row that they haven't really posted any stats, haven't really made a huge impact on the game, although I would disagree in terms of how I felt Payne in particular of the two played in each of the first two contests. But the fact still remains that the impact on the game from a statistical standpoint wasn't there, right? Now, you make a sack or two, which he had opportunities to do in Week 1 versus Tampa, and it looks different, similar to Terry McLaurin. That deep ball connects in Week 1, and we feel a lot different about Terry McLaurin's lack of statistical production through the first 2 weeks. But those things didn't happen, and thus there was a fan base that was frustrated after a win and really focusing a lot of their frustrations with the defense on those two in particular because they're two of the highest paid players on the defensive side of the football. It's early, and the statistics can come, but I tried to minimize how I felt listening to Dan Quinn yesterday in his press conference because, you know, I'm big on body language. I'm big on what is said, how it's said, and then I take what's said and I draw inferences from it. Whether right or wrong, that's how I operate, right? I'm usually pretty good on this, though. I'm usually spot on when it comes to this type of stuff, but I'm always careful because, you know, I could be a shit starter, and I don't want to put batteries in the back of people, giving them, you know, false information, this, that, and the third. So I didn't say anything when I heard Dan Quinn say the other day during his press conference, you know, Nicky Davala brought up, hey, you know, Payne, Jonathan Allen, they're being double teamed a lot. You know, how do you move those guys around? And DQ could have just said, you know, we got to do a better job of moving these guys around, which he did say that to a degree, but he also went out of his way to say they're not being double teamed on every play. And I went, huh, okay, interesting. And then, you know, to a certain degree, he said something along the lines of, you know, we just got to do a better job of playing together, right? And he kind of left it at that, and he said, hey, you know, these guys are playing, you know, well, and the statistics are going to come, and this, that, and the third. And he said the things that you're accustomed to hearing a coach say after 2 weeks of football, right? But Joe Witt Jr., on the other hand, and I told you that I was really anxious to hear what he had to say because he doesn't hold back, right? And he's a guy that says what he means and means what he says. And he's very particular about what he says, okay? He's not going to say something if he thinks it's going to be a distraction, or he's not going to say something if he feels like it's going to give away secrets of the trade or put them at a disadvantage. But what he is going to do is he's going to speak his mind, and you're going to know how he feels. And so I was anxious to see how he was going to feel because I was expecting this defense of the defensive tackles. Hey, they're getting double teamed. You know, we're going to do a better job of moving these guys around and creating some situations for them to get one-on-ones, et cetera, et cetera. And that is not, I repeat, not what I heard at the press conference today. As a matter of fact, he said, we got to rush as a unit. And I was kind of taken aback, like, wait a minute. John, not rushing as a unit? That's odd. Because we, for so long, when we used to hear Ronald Rivera and company talk about not rushing as a unit, we just singled out we singled out Chase Young and Montez Sweat as the guys that were the culprits. Man, we didn't think about the defensive tackles because generally speaking, when they were calling out defensive guys, when Jack Del Rio would call out defensive guys, when Ron would call out defensive guys, they were talking about the ends, right? When those guys were out in 2021 and we made that run, the D tackles were fine. and the defense started to play better, and a lot of people said, oh, we're better off without him. And I'm like, you're crazy. We're not better off without them. But we just blame the defensive ends for the lack of continuity up front. They were freelancing. They were doing their own thing. They were being selfish. They weren't sacrificing themselves for the good of the team. And they're making it sound, Joe Witt Jr. at least, is making it sound like the defensive tackles, specifically Payne and Allen. Now, he didn't say any names, right? And he could be talking about the defensive tackles in general. And he did say, after saying, hey, we got to rush as a group. Guys can't be selfish. After he said that, he said, when we bring those other guys, we talked about rolling deep with a crew. When those other guys come in, they got to play really well, and they got to pick up the slack. And they can't just come in, and we can't fall off of a cliff in terms of production or, getting after the quarterback, stopping the run, et cetera, et cetera. So he didn't really single them out particularly, but if you read in between the lines, right, he wasn't subscribing to that double team shit, and he wasn't going to give them a pass there, and he went and said, hey, we need to play as a team. We need to rush as a team. Just like we need to play on the back end as a team and communicate. We need to rush as one up front. We heard Warren Sapp say that when he came here for training camp a couple of years ago, right? Sounds like that's still continuing. Now, I haven't seen a lot of games up front. I haven't seen a lot of things that would lead you to believe, hey, man, on this pick stunt here, you're supposed to be taking that center and guard and allowing this guy to come around free, and you didn't do that, right? I'm not seeing a lot of action and activity up front for them to feel the way that they feel, but I'm not in the meeting rooms, and I don't know what they're calling and how it's supposed to be played. I do see Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen hauling ass up the field a lot of times, not getting to the ball carrier, and that's creating these massive gaps in the run game. I am seeing that shit, right? And maybe they're not supposed to be doing that. So who knows? But he was definitely talking about Allen and Payne when he said guys got to not be selfish and they got to play for one another. I said, oh, shit. Okay. So they're not happy with what they're getting out of those two defensive tackles right now. I like what I've seen from Payne. I don't like what I'm seeing from either one of them in the run game, right? This shooting up the field. Now, again, the way they've never played like that here in Washington before. They've never played like that up until this year. So that made me feel like, oh, this is being coached this way. That's why they're doing this. They're being coached to do this because we've never seen Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen shoot up the field and be out of their gap. They've been more of two-gappers their entire careers here in Washington, where they stand up and they could play either to this side of the blocker or to the other side of the blocker, right? That's what we've watched them do in their careers for the most part. It hasn't been a lot of this one gap penetrate up the field. And so I thought this was what they were being taught. And maybe it is, and maybe that's not what they're talking about. I just know they're not happy with the way that the team is rushing overall. And I think a lot of the things that they felt like they were going to get out of Payne and Allen, they haven't gotten so far. And in order for this scheme to work up front, everyone has to be on one accord. And I know that in this league, in order to maximize your pass rush, that has to take place. All four guys have to be on one accord. I remember watching Aldon Smith in his rookie year in San Francisco, and it's one of the best usages of a whole collective group, but two guys in particular that I've ever seen. Justin Smith would, at the defensive tackle, hold a lot of times, right? He'd set these screens and these picks. They call them pick stunts and things of that nature, where you go and you pick off the center or you pick off the guard, literally get in his way and stop him from getting to this looping edge rusher that's coming around as he comes scot-free. And Aldon Smith in his rookie season had about 15 sacks, and 8 or 9 of them were off of Justin Smith either holding the center or guard or running a stunt where he runs a pick and runs in the way, runs interference, and allows Aldon Smith to loop around untouched, right? And it was one of the best I've ever seen of a group just being in unison with one another, right? Playing off of one another. And that's what you want here. When Dallas was flying around with Dan Quinn calling the defense, it was a lot of guys sacrificing for the greater good, and somebody was coming scot-free. But it just seemed like a bunch of chaos up front, and I haven't seen that yet. Just a bunch of guys flying around, and maybe we don't have the athletes for it. Maybe we don't have what they're looking for. But I refuse to believe that we're not more athletic than Dallas when they had their guys outside of Michael Parsons. I refuse to believe that we can't do the things that they were doing up front. So I want to see what this looks like as it continues to evolve. But one thing I can say right now, they're not happy with the way that the defensive line as a whole is rushing. But I think they're not happy in particular because the standard is higher for Allen and Payne, right? The standard is higher for those two. They're the two highest paid players on defense. They come with a lot of accolades and attention. And clearly, when teams play against us, those are the two guys that they're focusing in on, right? That doesn't change the fact that they're getting double teamed, right? They're getting double teamed. That's a real thing. Other guys need to win. That's a real thing too. But when they call these different, looks, and I guess everybody needs to be working as one, those guys have to work better in tandem with the rest of the defensive line. That's what it sounds like to me. Now, that's essentially what you call being called out through the media without actually being singled out. And to take it a step further, we'll talk about what Joe Witt Jr. had to say at his press conference. Him and Cliff Kingsbury spoke today, addressed the media prior to practice. Joe Witt Jr. also gave 4 guys praise and said they're playing the style of defense the way we want it played. They're playing fast, they're playing physical, and they're arriving violently. We'll get to those 4 players. Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen weren't among those guys. But I said they only named 4 guys. There are 11 other players plus the reserves. He said we're going to roll up 17, 18 deep and whoop people. So out of 13, 14 players, or 18, 17, 18 players, you only named 4, so there's still 13 or 14 guys that you didn't name. So, again, I like the accountability piece from that standpoint, holding guys accountable, but I also thought he didn't do a good enough job. And he said it throughout his press conference, hey, I got to do a better job. I got to do a better job. I got to do a better job. He said that. So I like the accountability piece there because some of those third down calls were shit. Period. End of discussion. I don't give a shit how you feel they should have did this, that. I don't understand rushing 3, dropping 8, and playing man coverage and not having Malik Neighbors doubled. I don't understand it. So make me understand what you're trying to accomplish in that coverage. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if this motivational tactic works or if it backfires. Let's get to in other news. So we heard from both offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. We'll talk about what was said by both of those gentlemen. But before we do that, let's get to the injury report for both teams for day 2 of practice heading into Monday Night Football. So you start with the good guys, and the list looks exactly the same, which is a good thing because last week we got a surprise on Friday. Don't like surprises on the injury report. So at least not for the good guys. Surprise like we got on against Tampa Bay in week 1. With their defensive tackle ended up not playing in the game on Friday. He just showed up. Whoa, okay, we'll take it, right? I don't want to see that for the good guys. We had that last week. So anytime it looks the way it looked the day before, good. Cleveland Farrell, Emmanuel Forbes, and Johnny Newton were all DMPs, all limited. So Emmanuel Forbes, I got big eyeballs here, right? Eyeball emojis. I'm looking like, And it was funny because Ben Standig asked the question of Joe Witt Jr. at his presser today, and he said, well, I know Emmanuel Forbes isn't playing, and Witt didn't say anything, right? He just let Ben Standing assume that he knew the answer to that, and I'm looking at this injury report, and I'm saying, limited? Now, he still might not play this week, but the fact that he's not a DMP, interesting, especially when you look further down the list and you see Benjamin St. Juste limited for the second day in a row with a groin. I'm saying we might need Forbes this week. We might need him this week. So it was good to see all 3 of those guys practice. Again, Johnny Newton wasn't, injury related. It was just they don't want to rush him, right? They're going to take their time with him. So that was to be expected. Dorrance Armstrong limited with the chest. Good to see Quan Martin at full strength today from off that hamstring. And Benjamin St. Juste, a little bit, a little disconcerting seeing him 2 days in a row now with a groin. And I'm happy that the game is on Monday and not Sunday. Who knows what would have happened if, this game were on Sunday. He probably wouldn't have practiced yesterday, or he wouldn't have practiced on Wednesday, and he probably would have been limited on Thursday, and we would have been freaking out maybe. So being at the games Monday, he gets that extra day. I anticipate him being out there. I have no doubts that he'll be out there in my mind right now, unless something happens and, he doesn't practice on Saturday at all. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? But right now, I feel Benjamin St. Juste will be out there. Brandon Coleman, full participant with the ankle injury that he sustained in week 2 versus the Giants. And he was a full go at practice today as well. So no real big surprises other than Emmanuel Forbes practicing on a limited basis, I may add. Limited can mean he was out there, for, individual drills, and that was it. He didn't do any team drills. He didn't do anything for real, right? Like, doesn't mean he's going to play on Monday, but I didn't think he would be, practicing at all, to be honest with you. I just assumed he'd be out, just like Ben Standig did. So that was interesting to see nonetheless. Let's get to the ops in the Cincinnati Bengals. And Von Bell was limited yesterday with a back injury, did not practice today. That's something to keep an eye on, right? Because he's a big part of that secondary. Joe Burrow, he's just here for cosmetic reasons. He's playing in the game. Mike Gesicki was really good in week 2 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. He's limited for the second consecutive day with a calf, but I assume he's going to play in the game. T. Higgins limited for the second consecutive day with a hamstring, but again, I assume he's going to play in this game. B.J. Hill and Tanner Hudson for the second consecutive days do not practice. That's a big one with B.J. Hill in particular. If he can't go, that's a big piece of the middle of their defense there in terms of trying to stop the run. Chris Jenkins and Amarius Mims were both limited yesterday, both limited today. And then Sheldon Rankins did not practice yesterday with a hamstring and did not practice again today. So 2 of their bigger physical presence inside, 2 DMPs in a row, makes me feel really good about those 2 maybe not being able to suit up on Monday night. And if that's the case, we will have an advantage on the interior, and we will be able to have a better chance at running the football against the Bengals. And not only running the football, you'll have a better chance of holding up in terms of pass protection, as those 2 guys are really good at collapsing the pocket as well. So something else to keep an eye on. So let's get to what was said by the 2 coordinators. We'll start with Cliff Kingsbury. And, he talked about the disappointment of not getting in the end zone last week, but he was very pleased with the way they moved the football. I think we all were pleased with the way they moved the football. When you don't punt in an NFL game and it's not due to turnovers on down because you went for it on 4th down, or it's because of turnovers on offense, when it's because you scored on every possession, you just didn't score touchdowns. That's impressive. But finishing drives is the name of the game in the NFL with touchdowns. And we didn't do that, and we were fortunate to come away with the victory despite having to settle for 7 field goals. That said, he was pleased with the development of the offense and how they move the football. He's been pleased with Jaden's development, really likes the way he's coming along, was pleased with Noah Brown's first exposure to the offense, and he feels really good about how this offense is trending. Somebody brought it up. I don't remember who it was. I know who it was. I can't remember his name. But he's always the one that brings up this type of stuff. I really appreciate him because he's willing to ask the tough questions. He doesn't give a shit. And so he brought up the Cam Taylor-Britt comments that I retweeted on X, where he pretty much said with Jaden Daniels, they don't ask him to do a lot. It's a college offense. He said, what, Cliff Kingsbury, their coordinator, right? Yeah, it's a college offense. They don't ask him to do much. Pretty much saying this is nothing. Their offense is nothing. We should be able to stop it pretty easy. That's the way he kind of carried it. And so they ran with that to Cliff, and Cliff was like, I mean, that's his opinion. If that's how he feels, okay, cool, whatever. Right? Like, what am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to go back and forth to have a war of words with Cam Taylor-Britt? So they asked him about, and he actually brought up Terry's lack of targets himself. Like, nobody even got to that with him. He said, I got to do a better job of getting Terry McLaurin the football. He's one of the best receivers in the league. And I got to do a better job of feeding him the football, getting him opportunities. We're 2 weeks through the season, and he only has 37 yards or whatever. That doesn't make any sense, and that's on me. And I'm going to be better, and I'm going to find ways to get him opportunities. So that sounds like a man that knows that, we got to feed the beast. Like, Terry's a monster, and we got to start feeding this dude as such. And so it was good to hear him say that, without somebody having to even get that out of him, right? That was unprovoked, that answer was from him. So Good to hear him acknowledge that. He talked about the run game, and he said, look, uh, right now the pass game is down across the league, and he's not wrong, right? There are not a lot of passing touchdowns around the league as we're accustomed to seeing. The points are down around the NFL. There are only a handful of teams that are actually scoring points. Last year, this time, we probably had 3 or 4 teams with 40-point outbursts already. I mean, there were teams with 40-point outbursts in week 1. We had one team score 40 points in week 1. That was New Orleans. I don't know if anybody, the Cardinals scored 40 in week 2. That's it. Or the Saints did as well. Sorry. But there haven't been a lot of 30-point performances, right? A lot of these games have been in the teens, low 20s. 22-21 was the Eagles-Falcons game. Steelers games 13-6, right? Colts and Packers 16-10. Like, these were the kinds of results that we saw in week 2. And it was like that. What the Vikings and the 49ers was that 23-19, something like that. Like 21-18 was our game. Like, these are the types of results. We're not seeing these explosive, dynamic scores, right? 26-25 was the Bengals-Chiefs game, right? So we're not seeing these dynamic, explosive numbers across the league. It's just not happening. And so when you kind of look at it from a broader perspective, we are right where we're supposed to be. He's like, generally speaking, the defenses are ahead of the offense at the beginning of the season. We're only going to get better. We're only going to continue to improve. And I think we all feel that way about this offense. And we've been impressed with what we've seen to this point. And we feel really good about the direction and the trajectory of this offense. Now it's just about putting it together, being more consistent and scoring in the red zone and finishing drives, right? So that was Cliff Kingsbury in a nutshell. Then you get to Joe Witt Jr., and he talked about, last week's defensive breakdowns. He started his press conference by talking about their inability to get stops on third downs. That was the thing he said he worked on the most with the extra day of work because of the Monday game. He said we really honed in on third downs, broke down every aspect of the third down and why we didn't get it done, why we didn't get off the field. He said we're doing good work on first and second down. And I don't necessarily wholeheartedly agree, but I don't wholeheartedly disagree either. There are certain drives where we get them into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. The Giants were in 3rd and long quite a bit. And because they were going for it on 4th down with no kicker, they were able to get into manageable 4th down situations and then convert, right? He also brought up the fact that we've got 7 penalties on defense. I think he said 7 penalties or 5 penalties on defense. He said all 5 of them, I think it was 5. And he said all 5 of them have been on third downs, which created, I know that was a big issue in week 1 against Tampa in particular. I don't recall maybe 1 or 2. I remember the Noah Igbenogany pass interference on that third down against Malik Neighbors, which was a clear pass interference. I don't know if we had another third down penalty against the Giants. I know it was a problem in week 1 against Tampa for sure. But he said that's something else we got to clean up. But, he said they got to do a better job of, putting guys in positions to make plays, yada, yada, yada. He talked about the things that I talked about at the top of the show with the rush and how we have to rush in unison and guys can't be selfish. And so I think he was trying to make a point there. I'm pretty sure if he said it to the media, he's already told those guys how he feels behind closed doors. So they're not going to find out from the media that he was calling them out. I'm pretty sure he's the type of guy that's going to be no nonsense and cut through the bullshit and tell you how he feels in the meeting room, right? Watching film. So I'm pretty sure he's already voiced his displeasure with the way they're rushing and how they have to improve in that department and be as one when they're rushing after the quarterback. But he talked about Joe Burrow and, how you have to defend him. And he talked about Jamar Chase and all the weapons that the Bengals have. And he said, look, we played Jamar Chase 2 years ago in Dallas, and we tried to double team him, and he beat the double team. So we know how dynamic he can be. We know what T. Higgins is. Mike Gesicki had a big week last week. We know what kind of an athlete he is. So we know what we're up against, and we know what Joe Burrow is. And so he's like, we got to find a way to be better in terms of rush, lane integrity. We got to find a way to play better as a defensive unit. And we're going to have to be locked in because this group is dynamic on offense, and we all know that. And so he talked about that. He talked about guys that have stepped up and played the type of football. He said, we're not playing the kind of football that we set out to play. Like, we're not establishing that identity yet, right? We are working towards that, but we have not established who we are defensively, which we all can see with our eyes, that this is not the kind of defense that we were expecting, that they were expecting. And so he's like, we have to play to that standard, and we're not doing that. He said, and it's my job, and he said, it's my job to get guys to play free and not to be thinking. And he said, we had to scale back, peel back some of those layers of maybe some of the things we were asking. So be it, because what we want is guys playing fast and physical, right? And we're not getting that. We see the physicality, but we don't see the speed. And I've talked about that. I said, we're not playing fast enough, because that's how you're going to create the turnovers. That's how you're going to create those tackles for losses that I saw in week 1. I thought we played faster in week 1 than we did in week 2 in terms of down around the line of scrimmage. But I think that there are some things that they are going to try to do differently, right? Because clearly he's like, we got guys thinking out there, and that's what's slowing us down, and we got to play faster. And then he said, and that's our job, to make sure that they're not thinking out there, that they're being able to play faster. So we got to do a better job of that. And then he talked about, the 4 guys right now that are kind of demonstrating what it is they're looking for. And he singled out Frankie Louie. When I told you Frankie Louie, when I told anybody that was the entire mob, I said during the film session, like, Frankie Louie was an animal, bro. Like, he was killing it in the game on Sunday, right? Right? Frankie Louie was all over the field. He was hitting people. He was physical. That's what they're looking for. He said Bobby Wagner, same thing. He said we gave him a whole bunch of stuff in the film study, and he brought it to the field, and he was phenomenal with it. He said that Quan Martin, especially in week 1, made some extraordinary tackles, was put in some tough spots, and he was coming down and he was hitting people. Facts against Tampa Bay. I didn't feel that was the case in week 2 necessarily, but he singled him out, and then he said, Juice, Benjamin St. Juice, played well, which he was really good in week 2. And I didn't think he was half bad in week 1. It just, can't defense the perfect pass. And a couple of times Bake just put some dimes out there. But those are the 4 guys that he singled out. Benjamin St. Juice, Quan Martin, Bobby Wagner, and Frankie Louie is the 4 guys right now that are playing to the standard, that are playing fast, physical, and arriving violently. And everybody else needs to play to that level. And so that was one of his messages in this presser. And he said that, they've got to be better tackling. And he said, we're going to find the right combination at corner. You're going to see a different group. And I think what that means is you're going to see Noah Igbenogany starting, right? That's the only other option that you have at this point is Benjamin St. Juice on one side, Noah Igbenogany on the other side, because we're not tackling well enough in the secondary. And, he said it's a process for all of us. We're trying to figure out the right pieces to the puzzle, which guys fit where and who does what best. And they're still figuring out all those things. So he said at the end of the day, we got to continue to try to put our best foot forward. But, we got to be better. Like, this league waits for no man. And, I can't sit here and make excuses. Oh, we didn't play in the preseason this day. Like, that's an excuse, and I'm not here to make excuses. We got to find a way to get it done. And we're going to find guys that, can get it done. And we're going to continue to mix and match parts until we figure out who are the right guys, right? So we'll see what happens in week 3. And this is our toughest test offensively to date, to be honest with you, in the Cincinnati Bengals. So I don't think any of us are looking forward to seeing this game defensively, but hopefully they surprise us. But right now, the confidence is very low. And that's going to be kind of shown by what Vegas's odds are for the game and how they feel. But speaking of which, we're about to go behind enemy lines. But before we do that, let's get a word from one of our sponsors, and then we'll come back on the other side and talk about going behind enemy lines. What's going on? It's your man Louie T here on behalf of NFL All Day. As most of you know, I am an avid card collector. So when this opportunity came, I jumped at the chance to become a part of a growing, passionate community. So what is NFL All Day? Let me explain. NFL All Day is an opportunity for you to own some of your favorite teams and players' best moments in a digital space. Officially licensed by the NFL, you are going to own these moments as you rip these packs and relive some of the best moments of your fandom. I had a chance to rip open 3 packs, and some of the best things that I was able to do was have that nostalgia that comes with being a fan. It takes you right back to that moment. As you see here, Chris Cooley catching a touchdown pass. That was a big 2007 game, 2 days prior to Christmas, against the Minnesota Vikings on a Sunday night. Remember that game like it was yesterday. Every game of that run with Todd Collins after Sean Taylor's death was big for us. And watching that clip kind of takes me right back to that time frame in the midst of that 4-game win streak. And, you know, this one here from Doug Williams back in '88, this one's a little bit before my time, but I'm always down to see some old games. And so for some of you, this takes you back to that game and you remember that game like it was yesterday. And so that's what doing this does. These are clips that you might not find anywhere else, and they're all yours in this space. NFL All Day also has a 24/7 marketplace where you can buy and sell items with other collectors. Look, this is an awesome opportunity, one that I enjoyed. And could you imagine pulling a Sean Taylor out of this thing and just watching that clip over and over again and having it be at your disposal at the click of one button in your collection, or trading with someone else to acquire some of those plays? I pulled a Terry McLaurin play from last year against the Eagles, catches the ball, taps the dome, lets them know, you know, I'm over here pulling them down on somebody's head top. These things are so much fun, and you can be a part of all of this excitement. Head over to NFLAllDay.com and sign up. You won't be sorry. Why just have the NFL sometimes when you can have it all day? So as we transition behind enemy lines, you will notice right off the bat, the Commanders are 8-point underdogs on Monday Night Football. Yes, 8. That is a robust number. I haven't seen too many underdogs this season be that high. I mean, Thursday Night Football that just passed, you know, the Patriots aren't a great team. The Jets were at home, and they were only 6-point underdogs. We're the Patriots. They got us going into the jungle and getting our brains bashed in. And I don't blame them, by the way. You would think that Cincinnati is 2-0, however, with that line, right? But what it says is they're going to be the desperate team. They're the better team, which I don't think any of us disagree with. And they're going to come out with the level of desperation at home on a Monday night that we won't be able to match. And their talents will shine through. It'll take over. Our defense has been horrendous. And I think Vegas is counting on Cincinnati to kind of rack up the points here and be able to run away and hide in this ball game, and it won't be relatively close. That said, let's take a look at some of Cincinnati's statistical data going into week 2 and where they are, because on paper, this doesn't seem like that daunting of a task. But I know what my eyes see, and I know what this Bengals team is, and I know the type of environment that we're going into, and it's Monday night. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances that are going to alter what ultimately is the outcome of this game. And so these numbers, while they don't necessarily jump off the page at you, you have to understand that we're dealing with a different animal, especially with T. Higgins coming back into the lineup. But let's take a look at Cincinnati's overall statistical data going into week number 3. Total offense, they're 24th in the league right now. And a lot of that came from week 1. They were awful in week 1 against the New England Patriots. Scoring offense, they are 22nd in the league. They're not even averaging 18 points a game right now. And again, a lot of that stemmed from, and it's 2 weeks, so all you need is one stinker in there to bring your average plummeting down, right? So they were terrible in week 1. They only scored 10 points, and hence that's why the average is so low. The passing offense is right smack dab in the middle of the league at 200 yards per game. That's going to obviously see an uptick with the return of T. Higgins to the lineup. They're 19th in the league, tied for 19th with sacks allowed with 6 on the season. Burrow isn't running anywhere, really. You know, if there's a big gaping hole in the B gap, yeah, he'll take off and run on 3rd and 6. But For the most part, Joe's going to stay in there and deliver the football, which is why I think we'll have a shot to get him on the ground if we can get to him. But the key is we got to get to him. And the Bengals don't have this tremendous offensive line either. They've been working at getting it better over the last 3 years or so. But you can take advantage of this line. But guys are going to have to win, right? Guys are going to have to win. Rush offense. This is the thing that I really want you guys to pay attention to. They're third worst in the league in rush offense. And this is a real thing. Trading away Joe Mixon might have been a mistake. They don't have a semblance of a run game right now. Their two backs don't scare anyone in the run game, and they're averaging 72 yards per game. And I'm telling you right now, I was very disappointed with the run defense against the Giants last week because I wanted to make Daniel Jones have to beat us. And too often, he wasn't being put in those positions where he had to beat us, right? And the limited times that he did, he found open receivers. But we need to stop the run. And I'm not necessarily looking forward to having Joe Burrow have to beat us, but it beats the alternative of them being balanced and being able to do whatever the hell it is they want to do. They need to be in third and long. We have the best chance to be successful if we can find a way to get them into long yardage situations, whether it be second or third down. If they decide to run on first down, stop the run. If they decide to run on second down after a first down pass for 5 yards, stop the run, right? And force them into third down and long third and manageable, but don't let it be 3rd and 3 or 2, because on 2nd and 5, they ran for 3 yards or 4 yards. Don't make it, 3rd and 2, because on 2nd and 7, they ran for 5 yards. If they run on 2nd and 7, then it should be 3rd and 6, right? No better than 3rd and 5. So they're not good enough offensively as a rush team right now to hurt us. We need to be able to stop the run consistently in this game. And if we can't, I'm going to be very disappointed. Third down offense, they're tied for 22nd right now. They're not great on third downs. 33.3%. And again, a lot of that stems from week 1 against New England, where they were awful on third downs, but they weren't great against the Chiefs on third downs in week 2 either. So we're the worst third down defense in football. We talked about that yesterday. We're the worst third down defense in football right now. So something's got to give. Either they're going to improve significantly, and next week they'll find themselves 15th in the league, tied for 14th in the league on third downs because they ate us up like the first 2 opponents did. Or we won't be dead last in third down defense anymore. We'll find ourselves at 24 next week because we were able to get off the field against a relatively mediocre Bengals third down offense. Total defense, right now they're 10th in the league. They're a solid unit there, have played well. They really took it to Kansas City last week, and they should have won that game strictly off of their defense. They had some poorly timed penalties, as we know, that altered that outcome of the game, but that's a good defense over there in Cincinnati. Scoring defense, they're 15th in the league right now. They're giving up 28 points per game. That can't be right. They can't be giving up 28 points per game because they haven't given up 28 in either one of their first 2 contests. So that's probably 18 points a game is my guess. They gave up 16 to New England, and they gave up 26 to the Chiefs. That's 42 points, right? And divide that by 2, and that's 21. So they're giving up 21 points a game. That's probably about 15th in the league, not 28. But again, we'll see what happens with us. We've scored 20 and 21 points a game, 20 and 21 respectively in our first 2 games. So we're averaging 20 and a half. So right around what they're giving up is what we're scoring a game. I'd like to see us maybe turn it up a little bit. It's probably going to take more than the 21 we scored last week or the 20 the week before against Tampa to win this game. It's probably going to take 27, 26, 28, 29 to probably win this game, more likely than not, especially with the way our defense is playing. Passing defense, 128.5 yards per game given up. That is good for second in the league, tied for second. Again, New England wasn't throwing the football. They were running the football down the teeth of this Bengals defense, and they shut down Mahomes last week. It was impressive watching what they did to Mahomes and how they were able to really control the Chiefs' pass game, pick Mahomes off twice. They were very impressive. You know they got Trey Hendrickson. You know they can get after the quarterback. They got some good guys in that secondary, including the guy that was talking shit, Cam Taylor-Britt, who had the one-handed pick last week. So they got some dogs defensively, and so we got to be careful, right? We got to be careful. If Jaden's been clean, this is easily a game that he could not be clean, right? So we'll see what happens. Sacks. They are tied for 23rd right now with 3 sacks on the season. So much like us, they're struggling to get to the quarterback. We only have 2 sacks on the season. They have 3. So they're not that much better than us. But at any moment, Trey Hendrickson could explode for 2.5 sacks in one game. So let's not let it be us, right? Maybe next week or the week after. Let's not let it be on Monday night. Rushing defense. This is where they can be had. And this is where we're strongest at right now. They're 26th in the league at 159.5 yards per game given up. The Patriots ate them alive in week 1. I mean, torched them on the ground, controlled time of possession, and beat them up when it mattered most. They couldn't stop the run. Even when they knew it was coming, they couldn't stop it. And I thought the Chiefs had a solid performance last week running the football as well. I think you can run the football on Cincinnati. I think you can run the football. Right now, they can't run the football on offense, and they can't stop it on defense. Those, to me, are going to be some of the keys to this game, is exploiting some of the weaknesses that the Bengals currently have. Third down defense. They're tied for 10th right now in the league. They're only giving it up at a 30% clip right now, third down wise. We're executing at over 40% on third down. So something's got to give here. We're one of the better third down offenses in the league right now, and they're one of the better third down defenses. So something's got to give. We'll see which team has the most resistance in that category. Time of possession, they're 21st. We're killing it in time of possession right now, especially after the game we turned in against the Giants. So again, when you can't stop the run and you're not running it effectively, you're not going to have great time of possession. And that's why the Bengals are kind of suffering in that category right now. And then turnover differential, they're at 0, which means they've turned it over and they've gotten some. Like, they created some turnovers in the game against the Chiefs this past weekend, but Joe Burrow had a fumble, scoop, and score, right? Where he fumbled and Jamari Connor scooped it up, and it was one of the turning points of the game. So in the game against the Patriots in week 1, they're going in for a touchdown, and their tight end Tanner Hudson tries to stretch the ball out prematurely at the 2-yard line for whatever reason. He's got the first down. It'll be 1st and goal if he gets tackled at the 1, and he's trying to position the ball to stretch it out, and it gets knocked out of his hands, and the Patriots recover in the end zone. They've had some soul-crushing turnovers to start this season off. So they've broken even. They forced 2 against New England in the game on Sunday, or excuse me, against the Chiefs on Sunday, but they gave up 1 in that game against the Chiefs, and they gave up 1 the week prior against New England. So they're breaking even right now at 14th. They're tied for 14th in the turnover differential. So again, that's going to be a big part of this game too, is who can take care of the football the best. The Bengals haven't been clean at all this season with that, and we have. And if we can continue to do that, we'll at least give ourselves a chance in this ball game. So, look, the +8 on the money line in terms of the odds, and us being 8-point dogs, tells you all you need to know about how we're viewed in this game. We don't stand a chance. I like it like that. I like it like that. I like it like that. Is that so? Is that so? We don't stand a chance? Okay. The more and more people tell us that we're supposed to get our asses beat and we don't stand a chance, and the more disrespect is being lobbed at us, oh, it's a college offense, and the more I'm like, man, if we don't go slap these fools in their mouth on Monday, now, I can say that, but I'm fully expecting them to slap us in the mouth, right? But I'm getting upset. I'm starting to get pissed off. And you don't want to piss me off. I'm starting to get pissed off a little bit. Like, I don't have any ill will towards the Cincinnati Bengals, except they got me eliminated out of the goddamn survivor pool. And so from that standpoint, I would like the fellas to go exact a measure of revenge, revenge, revenge. for the kid, right? They lost me a shot at $1,500. I'd love nothing more for them to go, hey, we got you, Louie T. Don't worry about it. We got you. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I'm sure as hell looking forward to finding out on Monday night. The more this week kind of wears on and the more shit that gets said and the more disrespect that's lobbed at us, we're not the 0-2 team here. I get it, though. They didn't play the Giants. They played the Patriots. Shit, I don't give a damn. They played the Patriots at home and they blew it. That's not our fault. But we all know, even at 0-2, they're the better team. They're going to have to prove it on Monday night, though. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Monday. So we may hear from Dan Quinn tomorrow on Saturday as they wrap up their preparation for the Bengals and hit the road on Sunday and travel to Cincinnati and get ready for that Monday night game. But you may not hear from him being that it's a Saturday. We'll see. But normally he addresses the media that final day after practice. So I'm assuming that will take place here. And then we will get a kind of a clearer picture of the injury report. Some of these guys might be taking like Emmanuel Forbes. I'm still kind of like, whoa, Forbes practice today. Again, limited basis. And I don't think it means anything. I'm more concerned about Juice than I am Forbes at this point. Really want to see what's going on there. And I want to see what's going on with the two defensive tackles. And I'm going to keep my eye on T. Higgins. But in my heart of hearts, I know he's playing. But it's still limited. It's still limited. So you're telling me there's a chance. Okay? So I'll be keeping my eye on that as well. But if anything big happens, you'll hear from me over the weekend. But the likelihood is nothing big will happen. And you won't hear from me again until Monday. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Until then, enjoy the weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Raise hell.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down.